Welcome to part 2 of our Go Fish Bible Study series. Today's lesson is entitled A Great Catch, and we're going to look at a really great story in Luke chapter 5, verses 1 through 11, where Jesus is teaching on the shore, and he sees Simon out, and he calls Simon to the shore, and he performs this great miracle of this great catch, a catch that was so big that almost sank their boats. And I love this story for a couple of reasons, but one of the reasons is we see the compassion that Jesus has right here, because Simon was in deep debt. And had he returned to shore without a catch, he was going to be in great trouble. And Jesus uses his miracle to relieve him of that. So take a second and read this story, and then we'll dig into the Bible study.
How to catch a life with great purpose. And we see that happening in Luke 5, verses 1 through 11. Chapter 5, verses 3 through 4. Stepping into one of the boats, Jesus asked Simon, its owner, to push it out into the water. So he sat in the boat and taught the crowds from there. And that's a really interesting little detail. Peter, or then known as Simon, loaned Jesus his boat. And Jesus was able to take that boat and do some teaching and also do some life-changing things and show us a little bit about the purpose that he wants us to have in our lives. And I thought that was really cool that Peter was willing to give something to God, essentially.
Make everything he had available
Yes.
For a greater purpose, which Jesus teaches us in that passage before. It's not about fish, it's about sharing the gospel and fishing for men. And sometimes the only thing that God needs is for us to be available to do that.
I think that's awesome. And so a great discussion question would be, do you have something that you could give back to God, something useful? Maybe it's a talent or an ability. Maybe it's a possession that you have. Maybe it's finances. Is there something that you can give back to God so that he can use it as part of the purpose for your life?
Point number 2 is I must be willing to obey God even when it doesn't make sense. And in Luke 5:5, it says, "Master," Simon replied, "we've worked hard all last night and didn't catch a thing. But if you say so, I'll let down the nets and I'll let the nets down again." I mean, that is such a tough thing to do. It goes completely against our nature. That when something does not make sense, we will just move because Jesus says so. But that is the kind of willingness that he needs from us if we're going to change the world, if we're going to make a difference for the kingdom.
Yeah, that's a great point. Sometimes the things that God calls us to do don't make sense from a human perspective. But the beauty of that is it creates a crisis of faith, because then we have to trust. Well, this doesn't make sense from my standpoint, but I have to trust God. And when we do that, we get to see God work in miraculous ways. We get to see God do only the things that God can do.
Maybe you've had a situation in your life where you were able to just trust God's leading and to a great outcome, and will you take some time to maybe share that with someone right now?
And then point number 3, I must live each day overwhelmed by the greatness of God. And I love Peter's reaction here, Luke 5, verses 8 through 9. When Simon Peter realized what had happened, that Jesus had created this miracle by filling their nets up with fish, he fell to his knees before Jesus and said, "Oh, Lord, please leave me. I'm such a sinful man." For he was awestruck by the number of fish they had caught, as were others with him. And isn't that the place that we need to be, where we're awestruck by God. And when we're at that place that Peter was at, just blown away by who God is and experiencing real miracles, then all those other distractions from God's purpose for our lives sort of fall apart, fall away, because we're focused on God and what he's doing, and we're awestruck by who he is.
Yeah, and I love that they were so in awe of the greatness of what they had just seen that they were literally willing to just lay it all down. They gave it all up to follow him so they could go fish for men. Have you felt that call to lay it down and go follow Christ? Maybe God is presenting an opportunity in your workplace, in your neighborhood, to go fish for men. Take some time to think about and evaluate and look and see, is there a place where God is calling you to lay down everything and go and tell someone about him?